So yesterday, the whole cybersecurity industry and the hacktivist movements was shaken by this news that Sabu, this high-level hacker and anonymous, and the leader of the subgroup called LulzSec, had been a government informant for months. And Parmy, is having interviewed a bunch of these LulzSec hackers, and I know you're working on a book about this. Did it take you by surprise the way that it seemed to for me and for so many others?
Mm-hmm. It didn't really take me by surprise completely. A lot of people in the hacker community had suspected for some time that Sabu, as he was known online, had been arrested, possibly assisting the police. I think the extent to which he was actually acting as an informant, in the sense that he was allegedly working out of the FBI offices, in the midst of talking publicly on Twitter and kind of reining in new support, that has really surprised people. But no, I would say that there was some suspicion because so many of the other founding members of LulzSec had been arrested one by one. You had people who were very good at covering their tracks, seemingly better than Sabu even, getting arrested, and yet here was the leader, the so-called leader of LulzSec, who was widely known to live in New York. Everybody knew that he was Puerto Rican. Everybody knew he had kids and that he was in his late 20s, and yet allegedly still at large.
Right.
So
well, I guess
think there was a lot of, suspicion that something wasn't quite right about that, and it was kind of everything really was just laid bare yesterday.
Right. I mean, I read these rumors too. I mean, there are always rumors in these kind of subversive circles that so-and-so is a snitch, or, this guy is an informant. Some of the people who are, in fact, seem like the most faithful are often the ones who are accused of trying to take apart the movements or working for the government. But in the case of Sabu, what he was writing on Twitter every day for the last 6 to 8 months, it just seems so insane that he
seems so creepy almost as well.
I think
he was
just
calling out other people as being snitches.
Exactly, and just yesterday or the day before that he was outed as an informant, he was saying anonymous or hacker groups are full of informants. You can't trust anybody. Don't trust the feds. Watch out for them everywhere you go. And at the same time, he considered himself an FBI agent, according to some reports. So it's just, do you think that Anonymous can recover from this kind of betrayal? I mean, it seems like it would sow paranoia so deeply into the whole culture of this movement.
Well, paranoia already was a really big theme within the group. Once you're part of it, you're sucked in, and you're using all these different identities and all these different names, and you've got not only the authorities on your back, you've got other hackers on your back. It's a very volatile world. There's a lot of insults being hurled left and right. And now on top of that, this very much an almost mentor figure to a lot of people in the collective or in the community suddenly had been a turncoat. It is a real big sense of betrayal. And I think, just looking on some of the anonymous chat networks yesterday, there were very few people on there. And I would not be surprised if for the next few months we don't see that much activity or that much recruitment into the community. But what we've seen from Anonymous in the past has been, you have a very big, a peak in activity, such as 2008, when they attacked the Church of Scientology and made huge headlines. And then people get arrested and it goes quiet for a few years. And then it comes back again, 2010, with WikiLeaks and Cablegate. And now lots of people are getting arrested. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lull in activity, who knows, maybe for a year. And then a new generation of hackers will come up, volunteers who will perhaps be more circumspect in the way that they work. They won't be as loud. I don't really know, but I think we'll certainly see more, but it'll be a while. I think it'll be definitely a lull in activity.
Well, just last night, though, often what happens when members of Anonymous are arrested is that it actually causes a surge in Anonymous activity. They retaliate immediately. They want to show that they haven't been taken down. And that's already happened in this case. I mean, just last night, Panda Security, the Spanish cybersecurity company, was breached. Its site was defaced, and this long letter was posted by Anonymous on their site that was sort of this rant against, federal agents and snitches, and they're clearly trying to show that they're still active. But the question for me is just, can Anonymous actually? Although it's a large group, it seems like it does have a small core of elite hackers that are actually technically skilled. And can they all be arrested, or can a big chunk of them be taken out? I mean, do you think that that's possible?
I don't think you can, I think Anonymous is made up of lots of different groups, and you have some which are better than others in terms of skill, and some that are better than others in terms of getting attention. And I think you can get rid of one group, like LulzSec, which kind of was a combination of skill and very good at getting press attention, but it's not going to stop other people from coming up and invoking the name Anonymous, and then perhaps creating their own little sort of name as well, like LulzSec. I think you just can't stop that. I've heard it used before, the analogy of religious extremism. You can't just stop that. It's kind of a process, or it's sort of a brand that people align themselves to, and there's no organization or leaders that you can just cut off, head of the snake that you can just cut off to kill it. It's more like a starfish, as some people have said, you cut off one leg and then another one just grows back. But, I think, as you've seen, there was the hack yesterday, and now, of course, the FBI somehow, where do they fit into all of this in terms of how they've tried to bring the hackers down? Isn't there some issue that they could get implicated in as well?
Well, that's something I'm writing about today. Is it seems to me like this is a clear possibility of entrapments. I mean, if Sabu, this hacker, his real name is Hector Monsegur, if Monsegur for the last 6 to 8 months was a government informant, and at the same time he was on Twitter, probably also in private conversations, inciting, encouraging hackers to take down governments and private industry targets, including Stratfor. He clearly played some role in the hack of Stratfor, this private intelligence group whose emails were all then released to WikiLeaks, and now they're being handed out to the media. If he was simultaneously acting as an informant and an organizer of this group, you have to wonder, is the FBI actually trying to take down this group, or are they at the same time egging it on? Are they helping to organize the same criminals that they're prosecuting?
I think it's ironic, because it's like with so many of the kind of just the normal volunteers who get involved in Anonymous, what they end up finding is they get so sucked in that their own role and the reason that they got into the community in the first place just completely spirals out of control. Now, I'm sure the feds knew what they were doing. They're very highly skilled, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of plan that they had and an outcome that they had by keeping Sabu as an informant, and things didn't quite go exactly to plan, because Sabu is a very volatile character. Lots of people in Anonymous are very volatile characters, and you can't really trust anyone. That's the other thing.
Right.
So he's their informant, but they probably couldn't really trust him.
Well, I wonder, to what degree. It's hard to psychoanalyze this guy, but do you believe that he actually thought of himself as an informant, or did he think he was some kind of triple agent who was working for the government, but actually he had infiltrated the government and was working for Anonymous? Or he seems like the kind of guy who would have these. He doesn't really work for anybody, and
right.
To what degree do you think the government actually was in control of his actions and his rhetoric and all of this stuff?
Well, this is something that I explore pretty deeply in my book, which is coming out later. But I think that Sabu is very much a person of his own. He's his own person, and he can play people. He can play people who were in his crew, his hacking crew. He could play journalists, and I'm sure he felt like he was playing the FBI. But at the end of the day, they were the ones who could help to decide his jail sentence. So really, they had the upper hand. I think in his mind, he probably felt that he wasn't fully into being an informant, that some part of him would always be a revolutionary, and that was very much illustrated by the final message that he put up on Twitter, which was invoking a quotation from was it Rosa Luxemburg, a famous socialistic quote about a very kind of revolutionary rhetoric, and I think that's just something he had in the forefront of his mind throughout everything.
What was that quote? What was that quote again?
There are plenty of hacktivists who have that kind of ethos in what they do.
Right. What was that quote again? Do you remember the exact wording?
It was in German, so I don't know it off the top of my head, but it was something like, I am the revolution, we are the revolution, and the revolution continues even though I die, or something like that. Ich bin something.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy rhetoric for a guy who was a snitch at the same time he was writing those words. It's just a really bizarre story.
It's bizarre, and I think to live in this kind of world of anonymous, to really fully be able to live in it, you have to be someone who can be one person in the real world and a totally different person online. Because people online can never know who you are in the real world, and so you have to just be a different person when you're online. And so you get good at social engineering people, or acting in the state of one identity and then another identity. And I bet you for Sabu, it was second nature to be working for the FBI and then working for his crew of hackers. It was probably actually not that hard to do.